Some men are born into history. Others are forced to rewrite it. John F. Kennedy was both. A man remembered not just for how he lived, but for how abruptly the world lost him. Before the motorcade, before Dallas, before the echo of gunshots that still haunt America, there was a fragile boy who was never expected to survive, let alone lead the most powerful nation on earth. John F. Kennedy was born on May 29, 1917 in Brookline, Massachusetts, into a family where ambition was not encouraged, it was demanded. The Kennedy household was loud, competitive, and relentlessly driven by their father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., a wealthy businessman with political dreams far bigger than himself. From an early age, it was clear that the Kennedy children were being raised not just to succeed, but to dominate whatever world they entered. Yet John, called Jack by those close to him, was different. He was small, sickly, and constantly battling illness. Scarlet fever nearly killed him as a child, and chronic back pain would haunt him for the rest of his life. While his brothers excelled physically, Jack lived in books absorbing history, politics, and stories of leadership while lying in bed recovering again and again. Despite his fragile health, Kennedy developed a sharp wit and quiet confidence. He attended elite schools, including Choate and later Harvard University, where he studied international relations and wrote a senior thesis analyzing Britain's unpreparedness for World War II. That thesis would later be published as a book, Why England Slept, marking the first sign that Kennedy's mind, more than his body, would define his future. When World War II erupted, Kennedy was determined to serve despite being medically unfit by most standards. Through family connections and sheer persistence, he joined the United States Navy and was assigned command of a patrol torpedo boat in the Pacific. In 1943, tragedy and heroism collided when his boat PT-109 was rammed by a Japanese destroyer and split in half.
And she is speeding directly towards PT-109. Kennedy tries to turn, but there's really no time.
Kennedy didn't panic, he didn't freeze. Despite severe injuries, he led his surviving crew through hours of open water, towing an injured sailor by clenching the strap of a life jacket in his teeth.
Kennedy himself is thrown against the bulkhead. He re-injures his already bad back.
The Japanese destroyer doesn't even slow down. They just want to get out of there. So they just power right through and keep going. And the gasoline spreads out over the ocean and it's on fire.
The ordeal forged his public image as a war hero, but privately, it left him with intensified pain that would follow him into the Oval Office. After the war, Kennedy briefly considered becoming a journalist, but his father had other plans. Politics was the family destiny, and Jack stepped into it, cautiously winning a seat in the United States House of Representatives in 1946. He was young, charismatic, and unusually thoughtful for a freshman congressman, earning respect even from seasoned rivals. By 1952, Kennedy set his sights higher, challenging and defeating incumbent Senator Henry Cabot Lodge Jr. His rise was swift, but not effortless. Campaigning aggravated his health issues, and behind the scenes, he underwent multiple surgeries that left him reliant on medication just to function daily. To the public, however, Kennedy appeared energetic, smiling, and unbreakable. In 1953, he married Jacqueline Bouvier, a cultured, intelligent woman whose elegance would later redefine the image of the American First Lady. Their marriage was complicated, marked by personal struggles and unspoken distances, but together they projected a vision of youth, sophistication, and renewal that America found irresistible. Behind closed doors, tragedy struck, often miscarriages, the loss of a newborn daughter, and constant health battles. Kennedy's political momentum nearly stalled in 1956 when he narrowly missed being selected as the Democratic vice presidential nominee. Instead of retreating, he recalibrated, traveling, studying, writing, and positioning himself for the presidency with surgical precision. By 1960, he was ready, and America unknowingly was too. The 1960 presidential election pitted Kennedy against Vice President Richard Nixon in one of the closest races in United States history. What changed everything was television. Kennedy appeared calm, confident, and presidential during the first ever televised debates, while Nixon appeared tense and unwell.
The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy.
The president gained, America gained, by continuing the dignity, the decency that has characterized us, and it's that that keeps the prestige of America up, not running down America the way Senator Kennedy's been running her down.
I really don't need Mr. Nixon to tell me about what my responsibilities are as a citizen. I've served this country for 14 years in the Congress, and before that in the service. I have just as high a devotion, just as high an opinion.
Millions of Americans didn't just hear Kennedy, they felt him. When Kennedy won the election at just 43 years old, he became the youngest elected president in United States history and the first Catholic to hold the office. His victory signaled a generational shift of promise that the future had arrived early. Kennedy's inaugural address remains one of the most iconic speeches ever delivered.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. With those words, he framed his presidency not as authority, but as shared responsibility. His early presidency, however, was tested almost immediately. The Bay of Pigs invasion, an ill-fated CIA-backed attempt to overthrow Fidel Castro, ended in disaster and humiliation. Rather than deflect blame, Kennedy accepted full responsibility, earning quiet respect even in failure.
The CIA was telling him that Castro was about to get a large shipment of arms from the Soviet Union, including MiG fighter jets. And once Castro got these, it would be almost impossible to get rid of him. So it was kind of now or never.
The Cold War defined Kennedy's era, and nowhere was that tension more dangerous than during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. When United States intelligence discovered Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, the world stood on the brink of nuclear annihilation. For 13 days, Kennedy faced impossible choices with no margin for error. Rejecting both reckless aggression and passive surrender, Kennedy imposed a naval blockade and opened back-channel negotiations. His restraint paired with resolve prevented catastrophe. When the crisis ended peacefully, historians later agreed that Kennedy's leadership may have saved millions of lives. Beyond foreign policy, Kennedy pushed for civil rights at a time when America was deeply divided. Initially cautious, he grew more forceful as racial violence escalated across the South. In 1963, he addressed the nation, calling civil rights a moral issue, not just a political one.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated.
Though much of his legislation stalled in Congress during his lifetime, his words planted seeds that would later grow into transformative change. Kennedy also envisioned America reaching beyond Earth itself. By committing the nation to landing a man on the moon, he turned imagination into national purpose. Yet even as his public image soared, Kennedy's private life remained complex. He lived with constant pain, relied on medications, and navigated personal flaws that history would later scrutinize. He was human, brilliant, flawed, driven, and aware that time was never on his side. On November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, Kennedy rode through Dealey Plaza in an open motorcade. Moments later, gunshots shattered the illusion of permanence. At 46 years, old John F. Kennedy was pronounced dead, and a nation was plunged into collective grief. The assassination stunned the world. Questions, theories, and investigations followed, but certainty never fully arrived. What remained was a legacy frozen in time, a president forever young, forever promising. Kennedy's death transformed him into something larger than a man. He became a symbol of lost potential, of a future interrupted, of leadership defined not by years served, but by impact made. His presidency lasted just under 3 years, yet his influence continues to shape American identity. In the end, John F. Kennedy wasn't remembered because he was perfect. He was remembered because he dared to believe that leadership could inspire, that progress was possible, and that history could be bent by courage. Some men pass through history quietly, others leave an echo that never fades. John F. Kennedy was the echo.